Oh! What are you guys doing here? Let's get started after this. Sun is low today. Today is a low Sunday. Number 5. Had a little bit of a lapse in my posting because I was doing a lot of editing. Hopefully you guys have gone and watched some of the interviews at Hive Mentality, which is a new channel on YouTube. However, that channel is just being used to drive traffic we also have an Instagram. Those are accounts. We're just going to use those to drive traffic to our main site, which is hivementality.com. And we're going to do an official launch on December 25th, which is Christmas. It's going to be Christmas when we do our official launch. Got some big things planned for January. We got a nice little publicity stunt that'll hopefully draw a lot of people in, my buddy and I. And I would encourage you guys to start following that stuff, because if you're into, all the alt media shenanigans and things that are going on, I think this will be a place where some of you can find some sanity, because we are not sellouts and we will never sell out. You know what I'm saying? Know what I mean? So start looking into Hive Mentality. Now, if you haven't watched hosted by Tamara Watkins, when she was down in Washington D.C. at the rally, at the the Walk Away March, which was obviously got zero mainstream attention because it totally destroys any narrative that the mainstream media is putting out. I highly recommend that you guys watch the episode. It's funny. There's a couple little graphics that say watch the unedited interviews. I highly suggest you go watch the unedited interviews, or at the very least listen to them, because you're going to hear opinions from people that are going to shatter everything that you hear in the mainstream media. So the question really should be, if the media is interested in showing you things the way the world really is, you have to ask yourself one important question, which is why aren't they showing you certain other things? What aren't they showing you is far more telling about what their agenda is than what they are telling you. Now, today's subject, I'm going to do a little bit of a shorter episode. I mean, I always say that, but it always ends up going longer. But we're going to be talking about capitalism, because capitalism, I've noticed in a lot of the message boards that I hang out on, and a lot of the alt media places, and by alt I just mean not mainstream. A lot of these message boards are now kind of being hijacked by certain groups in order to steer the conversation where they want the conversation to go. They want young people, especially, who are figuring out where they stand, what their ideologies are, what their philosophy in relationship to the wider world is. And they are using these places now and posting things and influencing the discussion, I noticed, in certain directions, even to the point where, like, my buddy that I'm working on Hive Mentality with, like, we're starting to have, like, discussions where even we kind of disagree with each other on some things. But I wanted to address the capitalism question right now, because I'm hearing now the revolution is global. For those of you who don't know exactly what's going on, you will eventually. I mean, over the next couple of years, it's either going to break out into an actual violent war, which I do not want. Peace. I want peace, and I would much rather fight an ideological battle through the mainstream media outlets, getting people to wake up to the things that are going on through just the battle of ideas. I'd rather use a camera than a gun to convince people of what's right and what's wrong. I'm not a believer in the use of force, which is why capitalism is kind of the only way to go. And we don't have capitalism in the United States. People look at the United States and where we've gotten with the banking, with the bankers, as we'll refer to them right now, and the media, 3 parentheses, where we've come to is a result of apathy from the electorate and the people in this country who just don't want to get involved. They want to sit down and they want to watch their TV, and they want to watch their Netflix and chill. They want to watch Netflix and chill. Okay, I'm not political. I don't get into the whole political scene. I'm not as well educated as everybody else, but I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna place my vote, and it's gonna count 100% the same amount as you. Like, if you're one of those people who simultaneously says you don't pay that much attention and then you go out and vote, fine, you're entitled to do that, but like don't pretend like you know what's going on. Answer this question honestly. How many books on economic theory, even the economic theory that you like, which is probably socialism if you're on the left, and it's probably capitalism if you're on the right, both of those groups, how much studying in economics have you even done on any economic theory? Probably 0. And yet, you're going to go around and tell everybody how it works. You're going to go vote for somebody based on a word that they say that you've been programmed to like. So, one of the things I wanted to talk about is I've noticed an anti-capitalism sentiment coming up in a lot of these message boards and stuff, and I found a quote, or not it wasn't a quote from Aristotle, but it was an excerpt from a book about something Aristotle basically is pointing out about philia or brotherly love, things like that, where he's basically saying that in an ethnically homogeneous society, you can have a greater degree of socialism, of like shared wealth and wealth redistribution. I think in Europe, where you're talking about very small countries that are far more tribal in their mentality and their genetic makeup, which is rapidly changing right now, you can have a greater degree of socialism and a greater degree of democracy. I think he was talking about democracy in these ethnically homogenous areas. You can have a greater degree of democracy, which is to say, when you have a huge amount of identity that is shared amongst those involved in your particular community, you can have a greater degree of socialism. That's why there's a lot of, there's some states in the Midwest that vote Democrat locally a lot of the times, but they vote Republican in the national elections. So basically they're voting for kind of a localized version of socialism, and a national stance is more that of capitalism. Now, we don't have capitalism here. We have crony capitalism, which is the profits are privatized and the debt is socialized. So think about that for 5 seconds, and you'll go, wow, that's disastrous. Why should we all share? We all share the losses, but nobody shares the benefits. Nobody shares the profits, everybody shares the losses. That's terrible. That's absolutely terrible. That's even worse than socialism in my view. So if you're somebody who's watching this in Europe, there is a sense in which National Socialist can work. I don't think it's the greatest thing. I mean, it depends on what your trade relationships are with those people around you and the wider world. If you have completely free, open trade, you can have a degree of socialism and have things kind of work out. One place to look at would be Estonia. I think it was in the 90s. I forget the name of that guy.
Hey everybody, Tim editing here. Just wanted to say that it's Mart Laar of Estonia. He was the prime minister. All right, enjoy the rest.
But there was a guy who was like the youngest, whatever it is, prime minister, or whatever, president, or whatever it is, of Estonia. It's Estonia, Latvia, or Lithuania, but they've all kind of adopted, those three countries have kind of adopted the Estonian way, which was they had a 0% corporate tax on all money invested back within the country's borders. So in other words, if you were investing in your own country, they didn't tax you, because everyone's going to benefit from that. If you're investing in some other country, or you're investing overseas, or outside, you're going to be taxed on that. So it incentivized people to invest at home, which is great. I think we should have a 0% corporate tax here. And this is where people go, oh, that's insane. Corporations just keep the money. And it's like, what is a corporation? It's a group of people that are running a business. Now, I am not pro-business. I am pro-free enterprise. I would rather have a lot of tiny companies than a few big ones. But that's what happens what has happened over time, is that a group of big companies that can navigate the red tape, issue more red tape to squelch the competition in the market and keep them from going into business at all. And this results in this monopolistic society that we have right now. And then the ironic thing is you have people that are screaming Bernie supporters. They love Ocasio-Cortez and all these people that talk about socialism while simultaneously saying, monopoly's bad, government bad, and yet let's give the government more control over the monopolies. And all the government is in the pocket of the monopolies. So what you end up having is a whole bunch of robots that have iPhones and Android and Google and whatever, and all these people that support all these people and invest in all of them, because, they buy stock and all these conglomerates because they make the money, and that what they're really lacking is any kind of self-sacrifice to create a country that's better than the one that they have. It's always somebody else's job. And that's not capitalism. Capitalism is personal responsibility, laissez-faire, Austrian, Frankfurt, Chicago School, that type of stuff. But we have a whole bunch of people that are Keynesians that don't even know that they're Keynesians. They don't even know who John Maynard Keynes was, who even himself, towards the end of the popularity of his ideology, started. He even was like, we went too far. Anybody who, you think about it for 5 seconds. When John Maynard Keynes things went into effect, it was FDR during the Great Depression. So the market crashes, and you can look these numbers up. The market crashes in 29. 6 months later, the unemployment was going down. The government was saying we have to do something, but of course it takes government a long time to do anything. So all of a sudden unemployment, went way up, and then it started coming down. It never got into double digits. And then once the government started implementing like Social Security and all these terrible ideas, you saw the unemployment skyrocket, and it never fell below double digits for something like 10 years, something the next decade. You know what I mean? It was staggering. Now, think about that for 2 seconds. You start a program where you're going to take money from the people. Now, the people didn't ask for this. The group of do-gooders behind closed doors created this idea, and then they sold it to the American people. And all that idea is give us your money, and we'll put it away, and then we'll give it back to you later, because you don't know how to plan for your future. That was their plan. So I think it was 4 or 5 years, like 4 or 5 years, before Social Security could pay anyone, they had to take money from people for 4 to 5 years. So it just prolonged the Depression. They were taking money from people and not paying anybody, and all they did was just get everybody dependent on them giving the money back for a long enough time until people adjusted to that, and then they're like, well, that's the way it is. All while FDR going out there acting like he was the savior. FDR was one of the worst presidents we've ever had. And I also say that while simultaneously my grandfather, who was an MIT educated civil engineer, said the same thing until the day he died, several years ago. And he was right. That FDR was the worst president the country has ever had. And he was 100% correct. You just have to stop listening to your government-controlled education, because that's what it is. It's not an education, it's indoctrination. You go to government schools and they tell you what to think about all these things. But nobody knows the specifics. All they remember is the stuff that's like, FDR good, FDR save country. We love FDR. The guy was not a nice person. As you would expect anybody in power to be. Anybody who's attracted to power, who ends up there, or anybody who ends up there might not be bad, but anybody who seeks it out, I'm done. You're out. Anybody seeking out power and influence, I'm like, bye-bye. Bye-bye. But that's a lot of people. Everybody kind of seeks out a certain degree of influence, and we're all capable of evil things. And if you don't think you are, you're probably in denial. You're probably one of the worst. So all of this anti-capitalism stuff that's being drummed up is using as an example a country where that doesn't have capitalism. We don't have capitalism here. We have a greater degree of capitalism than most places on the planet, but we don't have pure capitalism that is uninfluenced by third parties. And that's the thing. That is the distinction. If you have trade that is between you and one other person, if I say to somebody, hey dude, I want to sell you this, and they go, cool, I want to buy it, and then we do that, there's a person in the government that goes, wait a second. Who's selling what to who? Okay, I need to examine this and make sure that it's safe for you to buy, and that it doesn't blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that just adds cost. Anytime you see a warning label or anything like that, that product had to go through some long, expensive scrutiny by some government organization, and as a result, it added tremendous amounts of cost to that particular thing, because then the company takes all the money they spent to have the government okay their product before they could sell it to you. And this is where people go, but if a company isn't kept in check, then they will just sell you things that will kill you. And it's like, why would anybody who wants to get rich, why would they kill the people buying their product? That makes zero sense. Have products been sold to people accidentally that have caused problems? Yes. That's because we live in an actual real world where there are bad consequences occasionally that are totally unforeseen most of the time. I heard a saying once from somebody where they were like, don't worry about the village idiot, because no one will ever give the village idiot enough power to ruin your life. In order to ruin a whole society and ruin people's lives, now you need a degree from an Ivy League school. That's the only way you'll get a chance to ruin massive amounts of people's lives. So if you have some fancy degree that everybody is like, oh, Harvard, they went to Harvard, everything they say is right. And that's where schools are at this point. It's what I call logo loyalism. If you're a logo loyalist, you got problems, bruh. You got problems. Think for yourself. Examine people as individuals. Don't just rush out and buy something because everybody else is buying it. However, if it's being sold and it's selling very well, the chances are it probably does what people say it's going to do. And if it's more expensive, chances are it might do what the other ones do, but even better or for longer. When you look at, like, I have a typewriter from 1938, still works. It's an amazing piece of technology. It'll never not work as long as you keep it in working order. You know what I mean? And there's only like a few people that even repair things anymore, that even like, I've kept those things, running. And yet now you buy like a cell phone, and you spend $700 on it. Squirrel. I almost hit that squirrel, but I didn't. Whew! Don't brake for animals. You'll end up hurting somebody behind you. You know what I mean? Oh my gosh. Stupid squirrel. Anyway, not like we need more. That being said, I'm a total animal rights person. I don't think animals should be treated like garbage, but I also do eat them. But I will say this. If you've never had to kill your own food, I highly recommend that you do it once or twice, because you will immediately change your eating habits. I honestly, even if it's something small. I used to work at a seafood place, and I had to process the soft-shelled crabs. Devastating. Devastating. I killed 60 living things, because they're still alive. And you have to, you take scissors, like these shears, and you cut off their faces, and their legs are writhing around, they're writhing around and trying to get away. You cut off their faces, you fold up their back ends, you rip off their tails, cut off their faces, fold up their back ends, and cut off like two little things on their inside their shells, like these little, I forget what they are, I don't know, tendons or something like that. But you cut those off, and you have to do that while they're alive. It's terrible. It's terrible. And the problem is once I did one box of 30, a few days later I had to do it again, and because one of the women there was like, I can't do this, and I was like, I can totally understand why. And then when I had to do it, it was just like, it gets easier. That's the problem. It gets really easy. But I think if more people were aware of how food is processed, especially living things, well, everything's, if cells are dividing, it's alive. That's the definition. But when you have to do like stuff that looks like it could look at you and be like, please don't, vegetables don't do that. But once you have to do that, you change your whole perception of food. You're so much more thankful for everything that you eat. And frankly, I don't like to go to restaurants that much anymore, because you don't you lose that connection with the fact that you're keeping your own life force going by sacrificing something else's, to put it I guess in a more spiritual, religious light. Anyway, so I would be very, whether you're socialist or capitalist or whatever, keep having conversations with people. I would encourage you to keep, figuring things out. Because there are certain, if you keep socialism more local, what is a family but a socialist organization? You have one person that goes at one or two. You have a couple people, whatever it is, however your family is set up, that go out or earn an income, and then they give it to charity cases. Children are charity cases. Children can't compensate you for anything. All they do is consume until they're old enough to have some sort of skill where they can contribute. Now we've made it illegal for them to contribute, which is so stupid. That's another reason the country is going down the crapper, and why kids don't become adults until they're 30 in this country, which is pathetic. I was just having a discussion with my dad the other day about the fact that I was like, I realized that if this was 50 years ago, 50, 60 years ago, by the time I was 18, I'd probably have a kid, and I'd be already in a career, in a house of my own, or an apartment at the very least, or a condo with a wife and a child too. Don't put off life because people are like, it's your 20s, it's your time to be selfish. Oh my gosh, I hate when people say that. Just get out there and just start earning, start making stuff, start building things. Tell your parents not to send you to college. Use that money to build a business with your child. Help your child build a business. That money could be, all those resources could be invested so much earlier, so much better. And why can't kids shine shoes anymore? When did that become like, oh, that's terrible? Kids love jobs. Kids are obsessed with money when they realize they can't have it. As soon as you're like, would you like $1? Like, yes. Like, what do I have to do for $1? Please give me $1. Like, that kind of mentality is driven out of them because we don't allow them to work until they're like 15. It's so stupid. And it's like, I would rather have a 14-year-old girl from high school running my social media for my business than anyone else. In fact, there was one time when I was doing a movie and I was like, I was working with actors who were like 16, and I gave one of them, I was like, I want more people to tune into this on Facebook, you know, and I was like, I want to like get the word out, and she was like, give it to me, and she gave it to her, and it was the highest liked, highest viewed thing I'd ever put on there. And it's because she just tagged everybody. And I was like, but that's not what it's for. And she's like, you wanted people to see it, don't you? She's like, just tag everybody. And I was like, ooh, smart. And from then on, I was like, I'd rather have a young teenage girl who's obsessed with her phone and all this social media, run my social media if I ever had a business. And they're like, but it's illegal. You know, it's like, it would be illegal to hire a kid. It's like 14 or 13 or whatever that spends all their time on their phone. See, like these blanket type of regulations keep people from being able to hire or run their business the way they want. We have crony capitalism. Okay? So when people let me put it to you this way. This is the way I can sum it all up, because it's time to wrap this up. Longer than I thought I was going to. This is the way I can sum it all up. If the mainstream media has been telling us, in America especially, has been telling us for decades, capitalism bad, capitalism bad, capitalism bad, socialism good, socialism good, socialism good, you can bet your ass that it's the opposite. You can bet your ass it's the opposite. If the mainstream media is infiltrating, and when I say mainstream media, I mean certain organizations that are associated with the people who own the mainstream media. Those people are now going in and trying to keep this bottom-up mentality from going on by going into these little message boards and flooding them with bad ideas to get people off the track. Ask yourself this question. I know there's a lot of people out there that are like Chavez from Venezuela, who was a National Socialist, or they look at Hitler, who was a National Socialist, you know, and now these people are like looking towards National Socialism as some sort of way out. What happened to those places after? You gotta think, if they've been ahead of us for this long, this century roughly, since the invention of the printing press, basically they've been spreading lies. Probably longer than that, but the printing press really accelerated their ability to just spread these lies. Ask yourself if they've always been steering you away from certain things. You bet your ass that that's the direction you want to go in. But calling something capitalism does not make it capitalism. Just like calling something, freedom doesn't make it freedom. All right? So keep those things in mind. That would be my 2 cents on that. And that's a very, very brief, discussion, one-sided discussion, diatribe, whatever you want to call it, about that particular thing. So, music recommendation, song recommendation. I think I'm going to do a movie recommendation next time, but this time I'm going to do another song. This song will be a little bit harder to find. These guys have not had an album. They've released singles. I don't think they're really releasing any music anymore. They might perform live. I think they're from Michigan. It's a band that I've been listening to nonstop since I discovered them a while back. A band called The Gitmos. It's a great name for a band. Now, whether you're on the right or left, I think we're all angry at the banks. All of us don't like the banks. And if I told you if I was like, it's because these people run the banks, you'd be like, but it is what it is. So I would say to you to listen to the song Bail Out by the Gitmos. I think you'll only be able to find it on their Bandcamp.
Hey everybody, Tim editing again. I just wanted to say it's not on Bandcamp, it's on SoundCloud. The Gitmos SoundCloud Bailout is the song. I think you're really gonna like it. Alright, enjoy the rest.
Which has been inactive for like 4 years or so. And whether you're on the right or the left, you will find songs by the Gitmos that you agree with. I've yet to hear another band that is so dead on with being correct about what they have, what they see going on, and they've been correct for quite some time, almost. I mean, for as long as they've been putting out music, they've been correct on things. And there was even some things where they're like, at the time, that was more applicable, but now since then, that view has become more nuanced. So check out the Gitmos Bailout. It's an awesome song, and I think I may be doing like a visual, kind of artsy video that will take me some time, but I think I'm gonna work on that. So check out highmentality.com. It's the layout is garbage and stuff right now because we're still putting together our CSS sheets and stuff, and we're getting that whole thing going. And it's gonna be, as much of a safe haven as we can make it, and it's gonna be a membership thing, and we're gonna try to keep it free of any kind of influence, and we're gonna be we're basically gonna be curating things from the web that we think are worth your time, that are totally new ideas and not like this crappy nonsense that you're being fed constantly by the mainstream outlets. Because I think at this point most people, whether you're on the right or the left, in America anyway, are starting to wake up to the fact that the media is not telling you the truth. And and everybody, when I'm like, you watch CNN, what a joke, people are like, what do you watch, Fox News? Only basic bitches choose A or B. There are many choices. If you say you watch this, you must, and you hate, and you don't like this, oh, you don't like this, you must watch this. You're a basic bitch. Stop watching corporate bullcrap. All right, everybody.